Hi guys, this is week 4 Project Life, and as usual I am starting with my photos. Now I'm super in love with my photos this week. I've got some really bright bold colours in there, lots of red. It's very different to what I normally end up with, so I am loving that. Now this week I'm still working with the February Love Stories Life Crafted kit from Citrus Twist, so I'm just starting by picking out some cards to add to this page. And because the photos are also brightly coloured, I'm kind of tending towards more lighter cards this week. So I picked out a couple of 3x4s. The Feel the Love 3x4 is super perfect. I just need to trim my photo a tiny bit and it will fit on there perfectly. And I love that little file folder 3x4 card. It's so pretty, so I had to use that, and the pink and yellow go nicely with my colours. And then I've grabbed out a couple of the exclusive 6x8 papers. I've got this really pretty pink one and one that's like a dictionary definitions of all sort of love words, which is really pretty. Things are going to change a tiny bit because they don't quite go according to plan, which seems to be a theme this year so far. But for now, I'm just going to trim a little bit off the photo here. So I've trimmed off my white border of the photos, and then that fits nicely into the pink square of that 3x4 card, so it still ends up looking like it's matted, except matted in pink, which I quite like. I like all this red and pink of this week. So I'm just going to stick down all these little photos, and this is the basic spread for this week. I don't end up doing a super amount of embellishing, but I do want to use some stamps. And I did quite heavily use the stamp that's in the Life Crafted set last week. But this week I'm going to use this add-on stamp. This is the Traveler's Notebook set, and it's got some really awesome sentiments in there. So I am going to use that one for this week. Now, I don't often stamp in coloured inks, and after I did this, I stamped this one in red just to bring a little bit more red down the page into this photo. There is some red there, obviously, with my iced coffee straw, but I really love the way that looks, so I must remember to pull out my coloured inks more often. I always stamp in black, sometimes in white, and sometimes in gold, but not very often with the colours. That's just a Memento ink, little dewdrop ink, and it worked really nicely, so I'm definitely going to need to try that more often. Now I stamped that coffee stamp with the idea that I would add this little banner piece to it, but it obviously isn't designed for that coffee stamp in particular because it was really quite tight. And the little sort of label stamp from the Life Crafted set didn't fit from where I'd already stamped that coffee stamp, so I just used my gel pen and drew a couple of little lines under it just to fill in that space, and I think it turned out really nicely. Now, even though this card already has a sentiment, I decided to stamp a little bit more on top of that. There's a photo of Lily like staring over Shane's shoulder while he eats an ice cream, so the let me get some of that stamp definitely worked for that photo. I had to put it on there, so I've just stamped it above the sentiment that's already on the card. Now again, for this card, I'm going to add my own sentiments to each of the little file pieces. So they're two different stamps, but together they're going to say anticipating fun. This was a selfie I took on the way to our weekend getaway, so that worked out nicely for that stamp set as well. In fact, all of these stamps worked really nicely for this page. That's why I ended up using this stamp set instead of the other one again, because this one here works too. This is the best part. And although I'm going to use a stamp on here as well, obviously I'm not going to be able to stamp that in black because the photo is nearly all black. So I do go and grab out my Brilliance Moonlight white ink, which is my favorite ink to stamp on photos in white. Just so beautiful, so easy. But again, that I put that all down to the fact that I print my photos at home on Canon Photo Glossy 2 paper. That's why that ink works so well on photos. Now here's where it goes all a little bit awry. I had this idea because I really loved this banner stamp here, so I'm gonna stamp that in the red. Again, I want to bring in a little bit more red. I love that combo of red and pink. And I had this idea that I could then mask off this stamp with washi tape. So my first attempt, I realized that isn't going to work. I need a longer piece of washi tape, and I'm just sticking it either on my arm or on the table just to take some of the stick off it a little bit. So I've masked out my stamp, and I'm trying desperately hard to get that straight because I had this idea that I was then going to use these Spencer Alphas to stamp out the word week over top. And then when I lift off the washi tape, it will reveal the little banner underneath, and I'll have this nicely separated week stamp. In my head, it worked really well. So you can see here I'm stamping that, and at this point I still think, oh, this is going to look really nice, but that's because you can actually still see the whole stamp there. I was a little bit bummed that I didn't get that second E straight, but you can see when I pull off the washi tape, this idea does not work because the washi tape masked off too much of the word, and you can barely tell what it says. So I'm going to have to come up with a plan B. I still like the idea, just the execution didn't quite work how I wanted it to. So I'm going to persist. I'm going to use these Spencer Alphas again. I'll just lay them back onto my block. This time I'm not going to worry about masking anything off first. I'm just going to stamp the word week as centered as I can get it onto the card. And the card I'm using is just the other piece of the 6x8 paper that I used for the bottom right hand photo. So it will all tie in nicely together in the end. I just miss out on that little bit of pink that I had hoped for. So again, same idea, I'm going to use that same ink and the same banner stamp, but this time I'm just going to stamp it directly underneath the word week. If you had a stamping platform, which I don't, this would have been the perfect opportunity to use that because that banner, the stamping wasn't that great. It really needed a second pass at it, but I knew there was no way I'd be able to get it exactly in the same place. So I just left it as it is and added the little gold puffy stick of 4. And then I'm gonna add my date stamping, and I was just gonna stamp it directly underneath it, but I figured I've got this really centered card going here, so I would try and add to that and trim out one of the printable labels that comes in the kit. This is one of the red ones. It's not the exact shade of red, it's sort of a more muted red, but it kind of works nicely with it anyway. So I'm gonna stick that on towards the bottom of the card, so still centered with everything else, but hanging off the bottom, trim off that excess, and then I'm gonna stamp my date stamps on there. So this year I'm not gonna be too picky about whether I've got a label or not. But if a label works, then I will still use a label. I'm just using the backing sheet from the stamp set to mask my stamping there, and that works really nicely. The plastic's easy to wipe off afterwards, and that way I get a nice clean stamp there. Now I've really only got one photo left to embellish. No, that's a lie, I've got 2. I've got this one at the top with Lil, which I kind of struggle with. It's a super busy photo, and she's looking particularly miserable. She had a wee eye infection and wasn't doing great, so she was all laying on my spare bed over my beautiful embroidered pillow that I can't be too mad at her for because she was feeling so miserable. And just this card down the bottom here, which I didn't really know what to do with. There wasn't a huge story for it. I'm not going to add any journaling this week at all. Most of these stories have already ended up in a traveler's notebook, so this is just sort of a filler week for Project Life, I guess. What I find really handy with these acetate pieces, and actually the die cuts as well, is having that sort of reference on the back so I can easily pick out the ones that I'm looking for. I really struggle with acetate pieces. They're so hard to fit onto a page. You'd see I tried a couple before that I loved, but because they're transparent, unless you've got a plainer background to put them onto, they kind of get a little bit lost. These ones here work really nicely. So my second struggle with acetate is how to attach it. I could sew them, staple them. This one here, because it's completely printed black, I just added some adhesive onto the back of that and used that like a sticker to stick down the loving one underneath it. And it worked really nicely, to be honest. Now I'm going to add to some of these stamps and these acetate pieces here with the gold puffy stickers, the letters here, just to, well, not only to add to the sentiment, so this one's going to say loving our time together, but it also will help tie in the 4 that I used for the week number, because otherwise we've just got this one little piece of gold sticking out at the top. So I'm going to add a few words onto the spread here, which will tie everything together nicely. So I've added together, and I'm just going to add the word nom under here, which is, you know, kind of a lie. I grew these tomatoes. I'm super proud of growing tomatoes. I don't actually eat tomatoes. I don't enjoy them. I grew them purely for Shane. So I guess the best part of it, this is the best part for me, was actually harvesting the fruit, and the nom is for Shane. Now I've got this one little card label, that I stuck onto this photo of Lily that I'm going to use to do my stamping, but my camera cut out, so you didn't see me do that. I just stuck it on and trimmed off the edge, and I'm splitting the stamp in half. So I'm using a piece of washi tape to ink up the first line, and I stamped that on the bottom, and then I did the exact same thing, only inking up the top so that I could split it and put the word not in the middle. So like I said, Lil was not having a good day, and the stamp said this is my kind of day. So by splitting that in half and adding the extra word in between, I completely change the meaning of the stamp, and it suits my photo 100%. So that is this week all done. It didn't all go according to plan, but I love the way it turned out. Those gold alphas are so beautiful, and all of that stamping is just my favorite thing to add to photos. If you enjoyed this video, leave me a comment down below, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye guys.